Hello and welcome to CSR Boardroom Dialogue initiated by India CSR. Our intention is to let our readers, viewers know about the CSR journey of the companies, the public charitable trusts and other sets of organizations, and from the boardroom view. With us is Mr. J. Sehgal, Executive Vice President of M Sehgal Foundation, which is a public charitable trust with a mission to strengthen community-led initiative to achieve positive social, economic, and environmental change across rural India. For the last 2 decades of its work, it has focused on areas such as agriculture, water management, education, community-led initiatives, sustainability, and so on and so forth. So without much ado, I would like to invite Mr. J. Sehgal to share his viewpoints, his journey, his plans, and anything that he wishes to share with us. Sure. Welcome, Mr. Sehgal.
Thank you. Yeah. No, thank you very much for this opportunity. And there's a lot to discuss about the Sehgal Foundation. Just a small correction, if you don't mind. I am the Executive Vice President of Sehgal Foundation USA and a trustee here in India with the SM Sehgal Foundation. So since this is a dialogue from the boardroom, so it's appropriate for that particular aspect. So I thought we just get the record straight before we get started.
So then before we move further, please share the background and scope of your association with Sehgal Foundation.
Sure, yeah. I've been associated with Sehgal Foundation since 2001. Sehgal Foundation was established in Des Moines, Iowa by Dr. Suri Sehgal and his wife Edda Sehgal and the Sehgal family. Basically, when the financial assets came to the Sehgal family, they decided that it is time that they set up a foundation to give it back to the country of Suri's origin. And so they set up this foundation to do work back in India. Most of Dr. Suri's life, he has worked with the farmers and the rural communities, being a agriculture scientist and geneticist, and his efforts have always been to bring better quality seed to the rural farmers across, not just in India, but across the world. So this was very, very appropriate to set up a foundation which will work for the well-being of the farming communities, which is the rural communities in India. And as you well know, agriculture is extremely important for the day-to-day living of the villagers. That's the major asset that they have in hand, that piece of land they have, and they should get the most productivity out of their soil, out of the land. So we particularly focus on the agriculture side, and the agriculture cannot exist without water. Water is very important for agriculture. So we also started work in the area of water management. And from sustainability aspects, we work on empowering the people so they can take care of their own well-being instead of being dependent on the foundation as such. So the foundation was set up on that premise that we need to empower the people, we need to empower the women to take care of their own well-being. And especially with the working on the agriculture, they have economic power to move forward in that particular aspect.
So now that you've discussed about the activities and the focus areas, can you narrate the journey of Sehgal Foundation, a 2-decade-old journey?
Yeah, sure. We started in India as a funding organization. When we started out, Dr. Suri and myself and other people who were involved at the very initial stages, we all came from a business background. We only know how the businesses are set up and how the business is run. technology-wise, from agriculture technology, IT technology, from those perspectives. We had very little idea in the social development or rural development aspect. So we said we will start out with being a funding organization, finding a few organizations who are doing good work at the grassroots level, and getting the work done that we want to get done. Along the way, we of course hired very well-known social scientists in India to help us to determine how do we want to get started. And that's how the very early beginning of the Sehgal Foundation. But soon we also realized the type of, in business they say they want to see return on investment, and the patience with the people runs out. We also looked at how we can get quick work done in the villages, keeping business ethics of business, not to make money, but to make sure that we are getting the work done as quickly as possible. Looking at those factors, we decided that it was better to go into the implementation side of it. By that time, we had already brought quite a few good social scientists on board with the Sehgal Foundation, and it was determined at that particular time that we need to change our direction, going from being a funding organization to an implementing organization. Again, when we were started, we said we want to work on overall development of the villages, what we called it integrated sustainable village development, which will include the agriculture, water, health, education. And again, as a learning experience in the organization, as we move forward, as we start studying the impact of all these programs, we realize that we need to bring more focus into what we do and focus on those areas where we are making an impact. And we started with a handful of villages, 4 villages we started out with, spending our own money. We were funded by the Sehgal family at that particular time. And basically the idea was to develop models which can be replicated, scaled up and replicated at other places. And so first 8 years of the organization, basically we spent on developing these models which can be sustainable and replicable as the organization grows. And then coming back to the focus areas, we said agriculture is of course one thing that we are first of all, we are very knowledgeable about that particular topic, because we came from, Dr. Suri has come from seed industry, and many of the people working with the foundation came from agriculture background. So we said agriculture is one area, water is the other area. And the third thing that we said focus on, how do we sustain these programs by empowering the people on and having them knowledge on how they can access the various schemes and various programs of the government to be able to sustain what we do. So because otherwise you're in a handful of villages, you cannot scale up. So we started with the very initial stages with these 3-4 programs, and they have been extremely well accepted throughout. And now we are in over 1,000 villages across 10 states in India. And we are working with almost 1.2 million people across India. And the scale up came through partnerships with various organizations, various companies. This was even before the CSR Act has come in. We started working with companies like Coca-Cola Foundation, Mosaic Foundation. These are some of the very initial organizations that looked at our models, looked at our programs, and they said they're impact driven and they can be replicated. And they came and joined hands with us to go into multiple villages. Now we have over 50 partners. Goes from Coca-Cola, Mosaic, Nestle, being some of the large partners with this. We call them, in our words, we call them partners because we truly partner with them, not instead of just taking the money and implement, but we partner in the process.
How has your corporate culture or professionalism got embedded into Sehgal Foundation and its activities and implementation?
Right. I think if you look at any business, business of course depends on their bottom line, and our bottom line was impact. Are we bringing the impact or not? And that was our driving factor. That how do we bring impact in the lives of people? It's not just going and giving something to do or getting giving what they say charity. It was not a charity work. It's how do we join hand in hand with the communities, hand in hand with the people, and to be the very important aspect is being a bottom up driven instead of top down driven organization. Our social scientists, as I mentioned, very, very capable people with the organization. Quickly, in business, many times you think top down, but we have always driven by a bottom up. What are the needs? How do we need to work with the communities? That has been the key strength for the business. From when you look at a business aspect. The other aspect, of course, extremely important to us is creating a business ethics, business culture, and having very strong principles with which we are driven. I mean, we have a tremendous culture in this organization, and we have a we give full freedom for people to work. That's the one aspect. Go and do the work that you need to do, as long as we stay true to our ethics, true to our business principles, and our culture. And that's extremely important to us. So they say lose on work environment, but very tight on the principles. So freedom to work is extremely important to grow the organization. And we, from Dr. Suri, has always believed in the fact that if people are instead of telling them what to do, giving them the freedom, go and do what you're hired for a particular work to get done, go and do it. So, but instead of receiving directions, always receiving directions from the top, what they need to do. So these are small things, but these means a lot in a work environment, and that's what drives our teams here. The type of environment, type of culture that we bring, and there are no gaps. Direct interaction. You go to direct to where you need your source of information is. One must have direct interaction with that source to be able to get the work done. And the people are left alone. People are pretty much left alone to get the things done. So I think coming back to your question, as in business, Dr. Suri has always been preached or taught about the ethics and the culture, building a good culture, letting people work, giving them full freedom to work, as long as our principles are not sacrificed.
Wonderful. So, what are your existing programs and focus areas for 2021, looking at the COVID-induced socio-economic environment? Most of the CSR programs or social grassroots programs have suffered badly, and beneficiaries have suffered badly. So how the change has been here in your organization?
This year, with the request from many of our beneficiaries and with the request from our donor partners in around the world, we went into doing the COVID relief program, basically. In general, the foundation is into the sustainable development process, but we realized there was a tremendous need, since we have reach to the villages, that we actually need to work on a relief aspect of it. So many of our individual donors in the US and many of our partners in India came to us and said, you have the outreach in the rural communities where this relief needs to be provided. So we actually, first time in our 20 years, 2 decades of work, we actually did a relief work where we provided almost 400 oxygen concentrators to the district and the village level. We provided tremendous amount of PPE materials to the communities, and so that has been one aspect where we got it. Then the other thing, COVID has changed all of us. I mean, there are changes in the way we work, the changes for our team, and the key thing that we have now looking at is that we work more, one of our other programs, which I did not mention, is called the Transform Lives One School at a Time. As you know, the school and the children have suffered tremendously in this process. So we are now, as the children are coming back to school, we are going back and looking at these schools which we have transformed to go back and say, in fact, providing them the safety tools as they come back to return to the schools, hand washing stations, sanitizing station, masks, so the kids are protected. Many of the children, as you know, cannot be vaccinated, or vaccination cannot be received. Then we also have worked tremendously through our community radio to create an awareness on the how to prevent COVID, and also how to, on the immunization aspect as well, to getting the information out to the people, because we have the outreach in that particular aspect. So those are the kind of things we have done and in our programs today to change, and we will now, as I said, in Transform Lives, we will carefully look at so that when the children arrive in these government schools, they are in a safe environment when they're in schools. The temperature check and these things are all done right at the entrance level, by the way, which is being done most of the places.
Yeah. Wonderful. So the last question is about a documentary on Dr. Suri Sehgal's life. We've been hearing a lot about it. Can you please share information about it and your release plan?
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful piece of work that's being done on Dr. Suri's life. As I said, that there's so much for us to learn from an individual who is self-made individual basically, but from a very difficult situation to being a philanthropist, one of the I cannot say top philanthropist, but getting into philanthropy in his life. So that has been that has been a very compelling and very interesting story to tell, actually. And we, especially when you talk about a person, his business ethics and how he developed throughout his life. So this is a very, very nice story that has been put together in this documentary. And there's a lot to learn, especially when we talk about our staff, our teams across India. And we intend to show this video to them, and not just that, but also to our beneficiaries, our village level teams, to see the mental behind the organization. What makes the Sehgal Foundation tick, and what makes Sehgal Foundation such a strong organization. And he is definitely him and Eda. Both have done tremendous amount of work in that particular aspect, and this documentary captures those ethics, those culture, his principles. So it's beautifully done. The work just got finished. It's been going on for almost 6 years, but it just finished putting the final touches on it. We intend to release in the US sometimes in September. That's our goal. We have a release in the US. We are trying to see how we can effectively release in India as well. And I'm glad that India CSR has accepted that challenge to be able to release it. And we are also trying to get the US Embassy and the American Center involved in the release of this we think is a very prominent, and once you get to see it, you will also see how well done it is, the documentary.
I am sure COVID has affected every organization, but I am sure going forward it would create a model for replication in years to come.
It's a tough situation, but I do commend many organizations who have come forward and really helped throughout this whole process. I know that when oxygen was less, people were moving out to provide the oxygen. They were not worried about bottom lines and were not worried about those things. So I think if the coming together of India would not happen, we would have had much more loss of life in the country. But I think while working together, I think we have saved many lives. Yeah.
This is great opportunity for me. So can I take 5-7 minutes?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah. So, what is your thought on the potential of agricultural potential of India in this this age? How India can leverage, take advantage from their agricultural potential. There is huge water, river, forest, the fertile land, and same time there is the youths are not taking much interest towards agriculture and not going. They are avoiding going to the field and farming in the rural areas. So I want your thought process, how we can restore towards agriculture, the culture.
Right.
Yeah, please.
Well, that's a loaded question, Mr. Kumar. No, you're absolutely right. Agriculture is extremely important to India. There's no question about it, and that's why we ourselves have kept that as a topmost priority. If you talk about empowering rural India, and almost 600 million people, one way or the other, are involved in agriculture or agriculture activities. So you really have to empower the people to do better agriculture. Now, water is the key component. I think you see with the climate change what's happening. Climate change is happening, and our monsoons are becoming erratic. I was in recently I was in Hyderabad, and all I learned was that even though we say we have normal rainfall, normal monsoon, but this is very spotty because they only measure how much rain has fallen in various parts. But it rains has some places it's completely flooded, and you go 10 kilometers, 10 miles from that place, it's completely dry. So this is happening where you don't have these widespread rains, but you have very heavy rains in certain regions and not having enough rains in the other area. So along with that, the agriculture has to change. You're right. It's the youth is not getting associated or getting into the agriculture. They're moving away from the agricultural jobs and agricultural activities, and they're going more being attracted to metros and the other type of skills which are available. And unfortunately, there's not enough skill building also. So you get a lot of unskilled people in the metro areas, and that's where the whole process starts. But coming back to the agriculture, I think it's we in our way of thinking is that we need to work on a more consortium level with the farmers, and is having a small farm size, productivity is limited or reduces. And we want to, if you have a contiguous farm of let's say 100 acres, you're going to have a much better productivity in that particular. So more on the consortium level, more on the putting the farmer units together to be able to get maximum, because we need to be able to have enough productivity to feed the billions that we have in our country. So that's very important. And I think sustainable way of agriculture, one of the key things that we realize is the fact that the farmer is not educated enough to do the type of agriculture that is required to be done. And so giving the proper education to the farmers and giving them sustainable way to grow crops is the right solution in that particular aspect, because we realize farmers will spray so much insecticide and there's fertilizers, but they don't realize what they need to do, and not every insect is bad for the crop, and so this type of education needs to be given to the farmers to be able to grow. So I think the main thing I think is how the key component of water is available for the agriculture, and with this climate change, it's a very difficult, becoming more and more difficult. With the rains getting delayed, cropping patterns have to change, and again, I think a lot of it has to come back to the technology also. We have tremendous amount of technology available to be able to, today the biggest technology is the cell phone, to be able to give the right information at the right time to the farmers, so they can do the cropping pattern, cropping change, whatever needs to be done according to if the rains are going to come, or too much rain is coming. So that type of things can be handled more in the digital agriculture aspect. So I think the from the youth perspective, I think the youth will go with the attraction is there, so they may not stay with the agriculture. They may, they're moving away from the villages, but I think in some places we have seen the trend also the other way around. Some of the young youth are coming back and taking a look at agriculture in a different lens altogether.
So I want to add one more thing.
Yeah.
You said there is huge rain and there is no rain.
Right.
But what I think that we living in the age of technology. For agriculture in the age of technology, I think water is not an issue. Our atmosphere has tons of water. We can innovate any technology that can capture the atmospheric water that can be used for the agriculture. This innovation, such kind of innovation is required. How we can absorb the water for agriculture purpose, that is already available in the atmospheric. Suppose there is a river, so the atmosphere around the river is very different, pleasant. So it means lots of moisture is already there. That is very useful for agriculture.
Absolutely.
We must explore for those places for to capture the moisture that is already available in the environment in tons, crores of tons. So this can help a lot a lot for the agriculture. What your thought process?
Yeah, no,
in
I
this?
think I'm not too sure. Yes, water, as you said, we have last 3 years, of course, we have had good monsoon. Prior to that, our monsoon has been very erratic in that particular aspect. But we have I think almost 3 years below. Before that, 3 years were below average rainfall. So the having moisture in the atmosphere, and I mean this is a technology thing, and this again, we always have to come back to the smallhold farmers, what they can afford and what they cannot afford, because they cannot move their farm too close to where the rivers are, and they cannot afford the technology to be able to generate the type of water. As a matter of fact, in the rural communities, these farmers are getting water from 2 kilometers. They're buying the water to do the agriculture. So I think and whatever little bit of money they're making, they're putting it towards the agriculture, towards the water, purchase of water to do the small farm that they're maintaining. So I think capturing the water from the atmosphere and those type of technologies, they do exist. I'm not sure how well they're tried in the world, but only source, I mean, really in all reality, only source is rainfall or what you have under the ground. And underground water, as you know very well, is depleting so fast. And many places they go 900,000 feet down, and many times they don't even find the water. So it is becoming our aquifers are drying out. The best thing to do is to capture water wherever it falls and be able to divert it to the safe storage, which is the aquifer, so it is utilized much widely instead of only in that particular region. So I think that is the best solution for the smallhold farmers in the country. You know, it's as I said, technologies are tremendous. There's no question. There's a tremendous technologies. Along the line is that not just having the water, but efficient use of the water. Many of the farmers go flood irrigation, which is the very, very primitive and very not good, not useful for the proper way of agriculture. Promoting the drip irrigation, promoting try to get what they call best crop from every drop. So that is the way to move forward, to be able to. So education with the farmer on the sustainable farming practices is the way to go for. Again, I'm talking from in the sense of a small farm holder, because what they can afford and what they cannot afford. So we always have to come back with those technologies which are applicable to the smallhold farmers.
To add to whatever you said, I've been doing research on local food systems and ecosystems as part of my book called Food for All. I've been doing this for the last 5 years, and during my visit to one of the villages in the rural parts of Odisha, I asked him some questions. One question was, what is your problem? He said he has only 3 problems: water, water, and water.
What? That is so true. That is absolutely true. You look at, look at our. I know there's a lot written about suicides in the country, farmer suicides. But you look at those reasons. One really should do a study. Wherever there's a water availability, you don't have the high suicide rate. Wherever there's no water, that is exactly where where high suicide rate is. So I don't know if there are studies out there of that type, but generally when you look at where the suicide is happening in the drier regions, where there's lesser rains and where there's a sufficient amount of water, you don't hear about suicides, farmer suicides.
So, according to you, what are the 3 challenges that India's farming sector will face? 1, 2, 3. And same, what are the 3 challenges that farmer will face as a sector and as a farmer? what are the three for the each sector that India is going to face in the near future?
Well, I think in the agriculture, first and foremost is the climate change. I think that's going to be a tremendous challenge for a country like India, because our so much dependency is on the monsoon. If the monsoon is good, our economy is good. If monsoon is not so good, our economy is not so good. That's the toughest challenge that India farmers as well as the agriculture community will face, and that has to be managed effectively. I mean, I think India is taking a tremendous stride in that particular aspect. There's no question, but there's a lot needs to be done, not just by India but all worldwide. I think yesterday or day before I was reading a report which said that no time left for climate change. Now, time left to return.
It was a damning report.
Yeah, right. So I think that is the biggest challenge the Indian agriculture and Indian farmer will face in the future. I think the second, along with the climate, of course, goes hand in hand is the water, because if the water is not there, there's no agriculture. And third thing I would say is would be the farm size. I think that's the farm size, because that limits the mechanization that can take place, because the world is moving towards more mechanization at the farm level. The smaller the farm sizes, the lesser mechanization. So there's a lot of labor dependency on the farming to be able to, and not to say that we are trying to eliminate the labor, but the effectiveness of the farming and the quality of farming, which can be done by mechanization, will suffer because of if we are not able to mechanize the farms. So I think those are the soils. I mean, then we get from farmer perspective, I think soils are extremely important. Farmer does not understand below the soil issues, which Sehgal Foundation has worked tremendously in, working on soil sampling, having the farmers understand the soil chemistry and be able to add the micronutrients, recommending to the farmer what type of micronutrients needs to be added to be able to get better crop in that particular. So I think it's in that particular, I think, aspect, again, for farmer is water, understanding the soils, and again, trying to work on I don't know if that's the right word or not, but more on a cooperative level, so that you have more larger farming aspects.
What are the three major steps that we need to take immediately
What are the three major initiatives?
Towards agriculture that is urgently required according to you?
I think continue to, I mentioned earlier, conserve every drop at the farm level, at the village level, at the community level. I mean, every level we can, I keep coming back to water, because that is the most essential aspect in agriculture. So farmer has to conserve every drop. There's no question, because we have seen from our own experiences that when the water is there, farmer right away switches to very water intensive crop, because they're of course looking at how much money I can earn at the end of the day. They will go. We have seen people convert in a dry land area. If you have a very good rain, that we go into rice cultivation, for example. So I think that's that consistency of making sure the farmer understands the value of water is extremely important in that particular aspect. Having the farmer, I think having the opportunity for farmers to learn about soil sciences, I think is extremely important. And of course, sustainable agriculture is what we work on. Education with the farmers. And I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right, but I'm going along with our own experience and what we are doing to helping farmers have a better agriculture. So we feel those are the top three things that need to be addressed.
Wonderful, sir. Thank you very much for joining us, and wish you all the best. And we are quite happy about the work that M Sehgal Foundation has been doing over the last 2 decades.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to talk to you, and thank you, Mr. Kumar, as well.